Who here would describe themselves as vulnerable? A few. I almost raised my hand, but I wouldn't describe myself as vulnerable. If you've ever heard of a local native San Antonian named Brene Brown, she gave a TED Talk in 2010. Wasn't even what she normally spoke about. She's a researcher. And she gave a talk about vulnerability. And it went viral. It hit 16 million views. And what she talked about is that you cannot be a leader, you cannot have gains without being vulnerable. Most people think that leadership and vulnerability are on opposite sides of the spectrum, but they're actually on the same side of the spectrum, and you must go through vulnerability to gain leadership. You must go through vulnerability to gain access to new experiences. We all have an opportunity to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations almost every day, but we tend to stick to what we're great at because we don't want to be vulnerable. I don't know if you're like me, but when I was raised, we weren't expected to show vulnerability. We were expected to show strength of character, no crying, suck it up, get through it, figure it out. Well, it turns out that that's probably the wrong advice. So last night, I was privileged to MC an event with 10 speakers. The program was called 10 Talks, little rip off on TED Talks. But what's even more interesting than that is that the 10 speakers, none of the 10 speakers are professional speakers, but they all had really interesting stories to tell. So I went to the rehearsals or the practice on Monday night, and every single one of them had notes. And I said, okay, now this is the dress rehearsal. Why are you all speaking with your notes? And they said, well, the host, the organizer, said we can use notes. And I said, well, I'm the MC and I'm telling you shouldn't use notes because this is your story. You know it, and nobody in the audience is going to know what you're talking about, whether or not you hit the right words or tell it in the same order. And it's going to be a surprise to them anyway. So you don't need notes. 8 out of 10 took my advice. They all were nervous as all get out. I talked to them and told them that they were going to be vulnerable last night, and they were. They emerged as much more confident speakers. So I want to ask you guys, what situation can you put yourselves in where you're going to be vulnerable? Something that you're not good at, something that you're not expected, certainly you don't expect yourself to succeed at, but yet through that experience, you will grow. You can do it in your business if you're not the person who is normally the pitch person or the salesperson or the account service person. Put yourself in that vulnerable situation, and I promise you, you will learn something not only about leadership, but you'll be more courageous for it.